Welcome to part 1 of the tutorial series on how to create maps for Unreal Tournament 2004. In this series we will be going through everything you need to know about mapping for Unreal Tournament 2004, how to create a basic level, how to set up your first lights, how to add AI to the map, like so bots can play on it, and other fun stuff like that. And we'll also be covering onslaught and assault mapping as well in the future. But for this first episode, we will be covering going to the basics of everything. So you decided you wanted to actually make a map for Unreal Tournament 2004. So that's great, but you're probably wondering, how do I even begin? Well, I'm glad you asked. So I will be using the Steam version of Unreal Tournament 2004, or abbreviated UT2004, which will use that abbreviation from now on because it's much simpler. Um, yeah, maybe most people already know how to go to your Steam games, but for those who don't know, I will show. You go to your library, you will go to Unreal Tournament, right click, and say browse the local files. Close that, and your window will open, and you will now be in the installation folder of the game. So the editor itself is actually located under System. If you scroll down a little bit, it's here unreal.exe. You can also create a shortcut to it on your desktop if you want, but yeah, for now this is where you can find it. Yeah, the first thing you want to do, because this is a program made in 2004 when Windows XP slash Windows 98 was still king, is to go into, I think properties also works. Yeah, you want to go into the executable properties, and you want to set the compatibility level to Windows XP Service Pack 3. Why is that? Because the UI sometimes doesn't scale like really well. Like if you leave this unchecked, then when you go full screen, it's not actually full screen. It's like a little bit not full screen. It's like really weird. But setting this to Windows XP Service Pack 3 fixes it. So that's certainly something I will recommend you do first when you want to do this. So hit apply and then OK, and then double click. Yeah, I have set it to start as admin, I think, which is not necessarily needed. Uh, 1 second. No, it doesn't. Okay, now maybe sometimes it uses admin, sometimes it does. But if you get this prompt, just accept it, or maybe you don't. You won't even see it. And see. So if you get a prompt and then accept it. So you will now land in the editor. Um, Most likely you will get the tip of the day because that's something that shows at startup. I had that turned off because, well, I don't really need tips, but I suggest you click through a few of these tips because they're really handy. There's not a lot of them, like you can go through them pretty quickly. I also will be including some links in the description. There is like a whole yeah that web page out there that's dedicated to the holy grail of UT2004 tutorials. So I will also recommend you guys go read that and explore that further. But for now, you can close it. And if you don't want to see the pop-ups at start anymore, you just untick the box and then hit close. So okay, um, yeah. So you're in the editor now. That's all great. This is the asset browser, but we will come back to that later. Yeah, there are some known bugs with the editor sometimes. Out of nowhere, this whole top side bar just gets compressed into like a very like it gets mangled basically. Like these kind of options just all go into this one and then you're unable to click on them. So like when that happens, just close the editor and restart it again. And so that's one of the main bugs that there are other bugs, but they're not as big as that one. And from what I know, I only found out that uh, the icon bug, the taskbar bug ish, is kind of buggy. Yeah, so let's talk about a little bit about the interface. On the left, you have your tools. You have your camera tools. These are some tools you can use for BSP, for some cutting. These are your brushes. We will talk about these shortly. These are some other ways. These are some actions you can do with these brushes, and these ones are not actually useful. I barely use them. You could use this one to change your camera speed. So this one is pretty fast, I think. Yeah, if you set it to the top one, then you need to drag quite a lot to get the same effect. So if you want, you can still use this one, but these ones are not really useful, I would say. Maybe we will cover them in a later tutorial, but for now, you can ignore these. So we have at the bottom, like right here, we have a few buttons as well. This button will maximize the viewport that you're in. So we just now were in the dynamic light slash dynamic preview. So it will maximize that, but if we click it again, it will minimize itself. For example, if we click on the Y grid, you will see a white outline on the top. That means it's selected, and if you then press the same button again, you will go into full screen mode of that viewport, which sometimes can be handy. Sometimes. I don't really use it a whole lot, but it's nice to, if you quickly want to check on in full screen on your map, then that's certainly a way to do it. Um, yeah, there's also a toggle for rotation mode, so we will also cover that in a short time. Yeah, you have a binoculars here at the top. It's a search function. As you can see, there's a few things in the level already. You can ignore these because these are every time you move, a camera is placed sometimes. That's really something you need to worry about. But for example, if your level is growing and you're looking for a specific actor, like a player start or something, like you can find it here. We will come back to this if I don't forget when we have a level build. Yeah, you can also set your grid size here. Like you can see the grid size is like 4 now. So every square is like 4 by 4. It's not 4 by 4, but you can increase the size. So I've set to 1. It's really detailed. If you set to this value, like 512 maybe, you see the grid is a lot bigger or a lot smaller. Yeah, I think it's bigger. Yeah, there we go. So I'll set it back to 4 because it's default. Um, yeah, let's talk about the controls now. This value controls the grid that you will use to move this thing. Like you can see, it's pretty accurate. But if you move it to like this, then yeah, it you see it's like snapping quite a lot. But then again, the brush didn't scale with the amount of with the grid size, so it's pretty small. Okay. Yeah, talk about the controls. Holding right click in any of these will allow you to free move. In the in the in the real-time preview, you'll be able to move your camera up and down and left and right as well, but you can't move it forward or backwards. Holding your left mouse button, move the camera. You can move the camera to forward and backwards. And holding both allows you to like do free movement, but you still need to use the left mouse button to actually like advance. So I'm using the combination of the left and the right mouse button to move myself forwards now. Like I'm holding both left and right and I'm moving my mouse to the left now to actually move. Like you can't move your mouse forwards even when you're holding both, but you can go sideways. So it's a little bit of a, yeah, you can use both. Like you can use left mouse button to move forward and then go up, or you can just hold both buttons and move left to right to go forwards at an angle that is, but it's up to you what you find your preference. Yeah, like you can also move the brush around the same way, but to do that, you will need to use the shift and control buttons to actually control it. Um, so if you hold control and then left mouse button, you can move it around freely. So the camera won't follow its new position. Holding shift and left mouse button will actually move the camera with it as well, as you probably can notice. So that's something that might be useful. I barely use the free method that doesn't move the camera. I always like that the camera moves with my chains, but once again, it's there if you need it. Um, yeah, using control and right click in the wireframe menu, so that these three you will be able to, and then right click, you can rotate them around. Once again, if you hold control, it will not move the camera. If you hold shift, it will control the camera as well. You can't do this in the real-time preview. You can only do this trick in the wireframe view. You can also use it to rotate static meshes and actors and other things like that, but we're using it to rotate the brush for now. But yeah, okay. But the basics covered, like I can also show you, you can have different layouts. So for example, this is the default layout, but you can also have it like this, where it's all at the top and then the bigger at the bigger real-time view at the bottom. Or you can have like a big vertical one and a smaller that one, but the smaller the wireframe ones at the side. But we'll be using the default one. That's just how I learned it as well, and I suggest how you guys learn it. But once again, you're free to customize. If you want to customize it, you can set it to floating, and then you can scale and then do what you want. You can also move them off screen. I won't be doing that here, but you can move them off screen, so you can have like one. You can have the preview, the real-time preview on one monitor, and just have the 2D wireframe views on your second or your first monitor. And if you change that, um, don't save it back to, like if you have two, if you have a window that's off to the other side, I'm not sure that if you set it back to fixed, it might break. If you make changes in terms of scaling, so if you scale this one up and this one down and then set it to fixed, it will work. But if you move a viewport to a different monitor and then set it back to fixed, I think that doesn't really work. But you're free to try that. But that's also an option if you don't like the default layout. But once again, we will be sticking better for the default layout. Yeah, there's like some toggles here as well from top, front, and side. And we will cover these things in a later time. This is for a real-time preview. Well, there's nothing to preview yet, so we will not use it. But yeah, okay. Um, so with that out of the way, we will create our first box. Where is it? So you create a box brush by simply clicking on the cube, and you will get a default cube here. So let's move it back to the center. Usually it is at the center. If you move it around, it's somewhere else. You can also use right click, and I think it's reset the origin. You also reset it to 0. But it's pretty small, so we would like to increase it. So we right click on the cube builder. This also works for these other ones, by the way. And let's set it to, I think 512 high and 512, 512. You will need to use multiples of 16. So 16, 32, 64, etc. So you can't do 1 or 2 or 3, that doesn't work. It needs to be a multiple of 16. You can also set the wall thickness here, but it's not something that will get used because it's not hollow. Because, well, we will use this for a different reason. So let's hit build, and I think the breadth can be 256. Oh, no, 512. The height can be the same. There you go. It's more like a little room now. So, yeah, what you need to do now is to give some context on what we're gonna do next. This whole black void is basically one big block of cheese per se. That's the analogy I'm gonna use from now on. Yeah, you will need to cut out a room in the cheese to make a level because there is nothing to play here. Basically, there is basically nothing here. So you need to carve out a playable space before you can actually start mapping in it. So what we want to do is use the subtract option here, or you can press Control S to carve out a box or shape in the area that you want. And you will see that a yellow brush or yellow square has appeared on the 2D view, then also in the 3D preview. And you can move around inside it and you will see it's actually, well, it's actually a box. Um, there is sometimes a bug where if you carve a box in a really weird way, don't think I'm able to show you that, it will not be hollow. Like if you try to carve out a box, and like I said, if it's a weird shape or like something else, then it won't be hollow for some reason. So if that happens, just delete. So just select it and hit delete on your keyboard, or just hit right click and just delete it that way. And then recreate the brush again with default settings or change the values until it works. But this one works fine, so we will continue using this. Um, so yeah, you have your basic room. These are the default textures that used by default. We will change those later on. So yeah, since it's well, I would say modern game, but yeah, it will need some lighting because it will be pitch black if we play this now. So the first thing you want to do is add a light. So if you right click on any surface, it doesn't matter where you want to click, but I'm going to click on the bottom, right click and say add a light here. So it's cool, it's a light, but it doesn't show anything. That's correct because we haven't built a level yet. I suggest you move lights up like a little bit in the middle because these lights are like room filling lights. These are not spotlights or anything else. These are just lights that radiate in every direction. So for now, we would like to place it in the center of the room. So we're going to use our 2D top view to position it nicely in the middle and use the front view to position it in the middle here as well because otherwise it's not perfect. And so great, we have a light now. We can actually see something, but we still can't play the level because there is no actor because the Unreal ecosystem uses actors. Um, that tells the game engine slash UT2004 a player can start here. So what we're going to need next is a player start. And you can also add a player start by simply right clicking on a surface and add player start here. You will notice this actor has an arrow. This is the direction you will start in when you spawn in. So if you have this pointing towards the wall, which I will do very shortly. So if you hold shift and then drag while holding right mouse button, you will be able to rotate the actor around and the arrow around. So if I would set it like this, you would see this when you spawn. So let's say this would be your starting point. It's not great. Sure, if you want to create a map that starts you facing the wall and you need to turn around, sure, you can do it, but it's not really good for a deathmatch map. So let's turn it around facing the other way. So you will see more of the room when you start, basically. So this will be your starting location. Always make sure it's a little bit off the wall, so don't do it like this, because then the editor will complain. It's too close to the wall, I can't spawn players here. We will also test that. So always use it like 1 or 2 squares with the default size of 4. 1 or 2 squares should be more than enough to allow a player to safely spawn. Yeah, make sure they're like aligned to the floor. So if you do it like that, don't leave it like that, because that's simply not going to work. The editor will complain, yeah, this is not a valid player start. So always do them at floor level. Or if you want to do a floating platform, make sure there's at least some piece of geometry under the player start, so the game knows, hey, this is actually a valid player start. I can start people here. And the final basic thing you will need is a zone info. It's something that will not discuss a lot in this part of the tutorial series. We will cover it later on because it will be really useful. So if you go to the actor browser up here, the little pawn icon next to the group browser, it will open up the asset browser again, and it will open actor classes. And what you want to look for is info and a zone info. So you select it, right click anywhere in the level. It doesn't really matter where these go. I always suggest you put them at the top, or if you have a really big map somewhere in the middle. You won't see these in game. You won't see these things in games, so you can place them wherever you want. Just make sure it's like inside the box, so it's not like out here, because then it doesn't work. So let's place it somewhere around here, and then close the asset browser again. Okay. Yeah, you should only have one of these per room. So, for example, if you would have a room next to this, you would um, need another one, but you should not add two of these um, per room. So, but we will cover that in the next part when we create a new room next to this one. But for now, we will start with this basic room. So add your zone info. Yeah. So when you have that, we want to texture up this little box because it's pretty bland, I would say. It's not really nice to look at. So going back to the top, there's this picture icon. It's the texture browser, and this will show you all textures and all the packages that the game comes with. We will cover textures for now. I think there's some decent in abandoned architecture. And let's grab this base 27 gold texture and apply it to the walls. So, and the floor. So if you want to apply a texture to a wall or a surface, you can right click on it and apply texture. What you can also do is, I want to select multiple, just hold control and then select, just as in Windows, or if you're on Mac or Linux, your equivalent probably. What you can also do is, I think it's Control B or Shift B. Yeah, Shift B selects the whole brush, so the whole cube gets selected now. So if you have like another cube but you want to instantly texture, then you can hold Shift B when selecting one. It will control everything. You can also select surface with a group or item or brush or texture. So I want to match all textures, and it will select all the textures that match the one that you selected, so we can pretty quickly add the texture to them. So we will be doing that. So we have a room now, pretty rusty as well. So we'll close this one. Yeah, you will probably think that it's not really, doesn't really look nice. Like it's all big and doesn't really line up. So to fix that, we would like to scale and align the textures first. So we're gonna select everything by holding Shift B. So we'll select everything in this room. It will not select anything in the map. It's only this brush. So everything in this brush will be selected. So Shift B, right click and surface properties. And this little window will pop up. These things you can ignore for now. We'll cover that in a later tutorial. You want to go to pan, rotate, and scale. These ones will be used to change the location of a texture, but for now we want to set the alignment to a box because, well, I don't think you know if you noticed, it's a box. So you can see it looks very pretty decently better. Sure, it can be improved, but it at least looks decent. So what we're gonna do now is maybe flip the texture around. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So flip it out. You can also set to 45-degree angles, but we won't be doing that. And I want to change the floor and the ceiling to be a different, take to different. Actually want to change it to a different texture. So I go to texture browser again, and let's make that this brown rusted steel. So you have the walls are different. So you can also use Ctrl Z or the arrows on top of here to undo, like I just did. Why doesn't it? Why does it keep selecting? That's not what I want. Hey, that's weird. Okay, that's probably new. Okay, I'm gonna hold Control and then select the walls, and then I'm gonna say Properties again, and I'm gonna move the textures down a bit. So V is for vertical movement and U is for up and down, as you can see. So I'll be moving them down just a tad, so it's like a bit more aligned to the floor. Okay, that's nice. What we'll do. You can also use the texture pan and rotate tool in here. So if you hold Shift or hold Control, sorry, you can also freely move it around. And with the pan tool as well, you can also move it around by holding left and right click. So right click, left click moves it up left and right click up and down. That will be reverting every change we made because we had our texture set up. Yeah, if there's no texture selected by default, you would get those bubbly textures. So you will get, oh, where is the brush? That's a blue one. So you will get, oh, I have a texture selected already, but you get what I mean. You will get the gray, yellow is purple texture or bubbly texture by default. If you have not selected anything, the editor will say, oh, there's no texture assigned to these services, which is fine. You can ignore that. But be careful when you select a texture, every default texture, so the bubbly texture will get replaced by the texture you selected during a build. So be very careful with that. So if you're only planning to ship or like test something, do not select the texture and hit rebuild because it will override the default texture with the one that you have selected. So be careful of that. Yeah, we will also add a static mesh. A static mesh is just a 3D model that is more efficient for your computer to render than these shapes. These shapes are really simple and also really quick to render, but the, their use now is more to create a box or a room, and that's it. Like you don't use them to create shapes anymore. You used to do this in UT99. You used to create like shapes out of these brushes, but nowadays their use has been superseded by static meshes. So if you go to the top and you hit like arch icon, static mesh browser, you will get to the asset browser again. And let's select a, let's go open. And let's go to abandoned hardware. Where are you? Abandoned hardware, and then hit lights. And you can also move the same controls, so left and right. Holding left and right mouse button allows you to freely move as well. You can use the arrow keys to flick through these. I will be using light number 2. So select it, minimize the window, open, you go back into the preview, live preview, and then right click. You can also click here as well, but working in the live preview is a lot better for these kind of things. And then add static mesh, whatever this thing is called. So, but you noticed it's not really aligned, is it? It's probably even upside down. Yeah, it's upside, it's to the side, as you can see. So what you want to do is hold Shift and hold right mouse button. There you go. And then drag it so it actually points downwards, and then move it to the center. So it gives the illusion that that light is actually coming from the ceiling. Um, but yeah, it's pretty small. It's used to it was obviously for a specific map. You can also scale it up, so like say like do 2, 2, 2, and it's a lot bigger now. Yeah, let's move that one slightly down so it won't conflict. So that's good. So we added a mesh. You can scale them up or down with the properties down here. Yeah, we still need to add a weapon spawn and some ammo and some other pickups because this map otherwise wouldn't. Well, you can play it, sure, but like you will run out of ammo pretty quickly and you don't have anything to shoot with other than the starting gun. So you want to add a weapon base first. So you go back to the actor browser, the pawn icon. You minimize that one. You go to X pickup base, and you go then to X weapon base, and you go to new weapon base. The difference between these two, this one is from Unreal Tournament 2003, and this one is for UT2004. There's not really a big difference, but I always suggest you get the new one because this one has some changes from the old one. So right click again in the active window and hit add weapon base here. You will notice it might be slightly off the ground, but that's something we'll worry about later. Let's rotate it a bit by holding Shift and then right click to move it around a bit so it's a bit more central. Um, so, but by default it doesn't spawn anything. So you will need to configure it to do something. So right click on the weapon base properties and then set the weapon base type to, let's say, do the flak cannon, for example. You can also change a lot of things here, but once again, we will cover that in a separate tutorial. For now, we will do just the basics. Okay, well, so we have a weapon spawn now, but now we need ammo. So go back to the active browser, go to pickup, ammo, UT ammo pickup, and you will have here all the different types of ammo pickups. The one we want obviously is the flak cannon ammo pickup, so I'll add one to each side. I think they're floating in midair, are they? No, they're actually pretty well aligned to the floor. Okay, so we have a weapon now. We have ammo. We probably also need some health. So we're gonna go back to actor, and then we're gonna go to X pickup base again, and then we want a new health charger. So we'll add that to the corner here. I think this one, yeah, this one for some reason has a really weird starting position. So hold down Shift and then both mouse buttons to drag it down back to Earth. Yeah, we can also add some adrenaline. That's a new feature in 2004. So if you go to pickup, tournament pickup, and then adrenaline pickup. So we'll add one here in the corner. And last but least, let's do a shield. Oh, where's the shields? It's under pickup base and shield charger. So let's add that to the side here. Once again, it also has a weird starting position. So you can use the real-time preview to move it around, but I suggest you use the wireframe views, like the side view or the front view to better align it to the floor. So yeah, we have created a basic room. We added some weapons, some health. To finalize the map, we want to edit the level summary or level properties. So you go to View, Level Properties. This little window appears, and the things you want to change is in the level summary. You don't need to set your author, but you can do whatever you want. You can set some type of text, some like description in here as well, some extra info. Hide from menu, so if you don't want to players to be able to see it in a menu when they play, you can also hide it from here. You can set your ideal play accounts. You can add your minimum ideal play account. You can add a screenshot of the map. It needs to be a texture that's in the game. So I accidentally set it to a texture that we used here. And you set the title. So let's do test map 1. Okay. And then summary, you can close. You also need to change the level info. And the thing you want to change is a default game type. By default, the precast game is deathmatch. And when we go into different mapping tutorials for different game modes, we will come back to this value. But for now, copy X game deathmatch, X deathmatch, and paste it into the default game type and hit enter. Save the map, so the little diskette icon, and make sure, if you do deathmatch maps that is, start your map with a DM for deathmatch. I suggest capital letters because that's how you that's how the other ones have as well. I don't think it really matters, but once again, I suggest you just do it. And then did a little dash in the middle and just type in test map 1, for example, and then hit save. So we have saved our map, but we still need to build it because there is still nothing really here technically, because the game doesn't know that anything has been built. So to do that, we hit the build all button up here. And as you will see, the lighting now has appeared. The map is actually lit now. And the game now knows that the map is playable, that this space exists, and that these actors slash pickup base and everything else is actually in there. Save again, just in case, and then hit the little play icon at the top to start the map. A little lock screen will pop up, and with some luck, we'll be getting into the game. Yeah, these default controls are just a pain to my existence sometimes, so to quickly fix that. And welcome to your map. Play. Really simple. So pick up the flak cannon, pick up some ammo. Let's lose some health. You can have your health pick up. You can also grab your shields here. And if you want, you can also grab your adrenaline here. And once again, if you respawn, you will respawn facing that way. You can also see the light up here. So pretty piece of detail that at least gives some context to where the light comes from. So if you want to close the map, you can just type exit. If you want to do it the cool way, you can do it via the console. If you hit tilde key, that's next to 1, and hit exit, or you can just exit game. And what you can also do now is you can go back to the editor and work on it again. But you can also launch up Steam and launch the game as you normally would. If it would launch, there we go. And you should be able to find it in the deathmatch. And I think, yeah, there it is. Test map 1. Test map 1. 6 to 10 players because we didn't change it. There's no information because, well, we didn't add any information. There is no screenshots because, well, we didn't add any. So if you want to play it, obviously you want to hit play, and here you go. And that's bad because I have bots on them, because the default is use a specific number. I'll use the default. So, your first map, really basic, really simple. It covers the basics. In the next tutorial, we will cover more complex shapes, how to create multiple rooms, but this tutorial was more to really show you the basics of how a level works, what a level would need to be playable, and how to place things like a light and a mesh and how to scale those kind of things up. So let's hit back to exit, go back to the editor. Yeah, and that's will do it for now. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments. I will do my best to respond to all of them. The next episode will be on more complex brushes. So, like I said, like we will cover more of these. Yeah, so we will do that. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.